YouTube channel. Harlem Liberation School is a Black nationalist, Pan-African community organization based in Harlem. We provide relevant and credible political education to help Black people wake up, clean up, and stand up, in the words of Brother Malcolm X. To do this, we provide panel discussions, political commentary, mini documentaries, leadership tips, classes, and interviews with some of our most dedicated and effective leaders, activists, and intellectuals around the world. Peace and Black Power families, Brother Ajay Taimba from Harlem Liberation School, where we teach Black people to wake up, clean up, and stand up. Family, we have a very important broadcast tonight. Naturally, I believe all of the broadcasts are important because they all are teaching us to wake up, clean up, and stand up. I don't think there's anything more important than that we can do, at least with respect to social media platforms. And today, family, we deal with a lot of issues on this channel. But one thing I was telling Brother Bomani, who will be one of our guests tonight, that I made a commitment last year that this year I would be more vigilant to use my gifts, my talents, and my platforms to highlight and to have brothers and sisters on who can highlight, speak to, and advocate around the issue of our political prisoners. Why? Well, think of it this way. These are people who worked often for decades. Some were snatched up by the government because of their political ideas and activities in their teens and 20s. And many have languished in the dungeons of the American prison system upwards of 20, 30, and 40 years. Many of them have been in segregated housing units, solitary confinement, can't get sunlight, can't see people, can't go outside but for maybe an hour a day. I mean, really repressive conditions, overly punitive conditions, and conditions that violate all types of constitutional and human rights sort of principles. We, at minimum, should be advocating for, protesting for, getting petitions signed, raising money for, all of these things to raise consciousness to free our political prisoners, such that they can come out in time and enjoy some of their lives out of captivity of the American government. It's very important. I want to talk a little bit about the brother that this whole campaign is about. Then I'm going to bring my good brothers on who are going to be our hosts tonight that will really carry this discussion forward. Brother Abdul Olugbala Shakur is an elder, a husband, Baba, freedom fighter, educator, poet, author, Muslim, and a new African political prisoner. This Baba has been incarcerated for over 45 plus years. You heard me correctly. With over 32 of those years being in solitary confinement. That alone, that's torturous, family. To be all that time, can't talk to people, that's just crazy. No real sunlight. Anyway, this elder was put in the notorious security housing unit, or I think that's segregated housing unit, within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation due to his political activism. And his only crime has been identifying with the New African Independence Movement, as he himself is a New African revolutionary nationalist and a citizen of the Republic of New Africa. Father Abdul has seriously worked with numerous brothers through his life experience and education to get them out of the criminal mentality, right? To take them from being community predators to being community empowerment agents, right? and that in turn makes them better people inside behind the walls of oppression. And if they get out, it makes them people who can come into our communities and make up for, in some cases, the things they did that were maybe more nefarious, right? So that's important. So they come home, they can add in building our communities that they once contributed to destroying. That's very important work. We should also note that Baba Abdul Olugbala Shakur is the founder of the Asada Alert Network, founder of the Emergency Response Network. And it's interesting that when he was denied parole, I believe in December, and we're going to talk more about this, when it came to this work of the Asada Alert Network and the Emergency Response Network, the state of California penal system, they said, well, that's not really community-based. That's not sufficient evidence that he's done anything worthy of granting him parole, right? So we know, family, that these are our adversaries, and we know that when they catch us behind enemy lines, they lock us up, it is their intention to make sure that our brothers and sisters die in their dungeons. We know this. We know what happened with brother formerly known as H. Rap Brown. Had a huge growth protruding from his cheek. Had a bone marrow cancer, I do believe. We know about brother Matulu Shakur. His brothers are in there and often not getting proper medical care. Well, so we're going to be talking about all these kind of issues because we're talking about a campaign to free Baba Abdul Olugbala Shakur and actually to free all the political prisoners, right? And so with that said, I want to bring on my brother, man. This is a beautiful brother. Republican of Africa. He does many things. I know he's at George Jackson University. He's kind of like the Minister of Education and many other things, I believe, for the Republican of New Africa. He does a whole lot of grassroots community organizing work. And my brother, Minister King, I have not spoken to or seen in a minute, but I believe this brother does some revolutionary hip hop and some hardcore community organizing as well. Let me bring my brothers on.
Peace, Black Power,
Sorry, hold on.
and welcome.
All right. Make sure you brothers unmute yourselves if you haven't already. Peace, brothers.
Peace, brother. Peace.
Free the land.
How my brothers doing tonight, man?
Real line, brother. I'm well. How about yourself, brother? I'm well. I'm strong, safe,
No
and sane.
complaints. Yes,
Pushing
sir.
forward.
I'm good. I'm above ground, still focused, still creating, and still fighting to liberate our elders.
That's what's up. Now, let's get right into it. I'm going to, as you answer questions, I'm going to get off the screen and put the spotlight on my brothers, so as not to be a distraction. For those watching live now or in the later recorded version, who may be hearing Brother Abdul Shakur's name for the first time, can you briefly explain who he is, what he has stood for politically, and how did he come to be incarcerated more than 45 years ago?
Okay. Well, first thing I'm gonna say, brother Abdul is a child of the Black Liberation Movement, child of the African Independent Movement. The brother got recruited at a young age of 6 and 7 by his father and other comrade who were Black Panther Party members in San Diego. So he came up as a Black Panther Cub in the midst of learning various community programs, community-based programs, and so forth, so on, right? And basically as the brother developed in his age, he came across other comrades and other family members, other people that would educate him. So he already had a political mind already when he went inside. Now, in the midst of him initially going in, he was out there in San Diego. So a lot of soldiers out there going to the base and things of that nature. So they were harassing a lot of the new African sisters, raping them and sexual abuse and things of that nature, right? So one of the sisters got sexually abused. So by Abdul being a vanguard of the community, he responded. And in their response, In response, it resulted in one of the white sailors being killed, another white sailor being injured. And in the midst of this, um, certain people turned state evidence and told them that Abdul had did this, and it resulted in him going to prison with 15 in life. And when he went got into prison, when he went to prison in California, a lot of elders embraced him because he already political he's already, and he became politically active inside of the walls of California prison system, like educating brothers and pushing for education and doing the same thing he was doing on the streets. And in the midst of that, um, he started studying the concepts of New York Revolution and nationalism. Started reading George Jackson book, reading political books by strategy, so forth and so on. And the brother got along with other brothers, um, due to their political work, and they organize and educate the mind, the masses of the people inside, and what are protecting people from racial attacks, keeping the violence down, keeping everything peaceful. He would categorize and label it as a security threat group, knowing that he was sentenced to the security house unit at the shoe, with intermittent terms where people go in now, they are locked down as quote unquote gang members. Now, the brother is not a part of any kind of gang, right? The only crime that he committed was following the ideology of the New African Independent Movement in the Citizen Republic of Africa. And basically, the Citizen Republic of Africa has a long history of resistance toward the government, as people can see and as people can analyze as well, especially in regards to the RNL 11 that happened August 1971, in which Mama moved from the RNL 11 just transitioned this week. One of the elders of the RNL 11, and also the New Belt incident happened in 1969. In the midst of both of these incidents, the Republic of Africa fought valiantly against the state in regard to oppression and having shootouts. So anybody that has been labeled members of the Republic of Africa automatically have been labeled as terrorist security threat groups. Like for instance, you have people like Dr. Matulu that got out a couple of years ago that transitioned. Dr. Jaleel Muta King, another New African, and the list goes on in regard to different people, especially in regard to the prison in California, right? So they're basically a little brief about how they were Olugbala Shakur in a brief, right? They're basically him in a brief. Can't hear you, brother.
Having a little difficulty with some of this tech. Please forgive me.
Okay.
Thank you for that. So just to be clear, this is a brother who was not necessarily politically active prior to being in prison. He got involved, intervened on behalf of a sister, and as a result of that incident, went to jail, got in prison, and in that context became politicized. Is that correct?
No. The brother was politically active already. He was a Black Panther Cub, and he's a member of a couple other formations already. He was doing community work, such as he basically going around helping all the elders in the community, helping to build community gardens, political education classes, help protect them against racial violence and attacks, things of that nature. And that's why he did with the sister. That what he been that we grew up on, protecting the new African women, sisters, and children. So he was already active already as a Black Panther Cub. You know what I'm saying? And also as a young member that was associated with the Black Liberation Army at that time. So he was active already.
Wow.
From the young age, politically active already. So he went in, you were all politically educated when he went in. So that's why you were able to be embraced by the brothers in there, because he was politically educated as well. So they embraced him naturally. They knew who he was. They everybody K things of that nature,
So now he's spent more than 32 years in solitary confinement. What impact, for those who don't know, who are watching, they hear this idea of solitary confinement all the time. But what impact does being in solitary confinement for upwards of 30 years have on a human being, mind and body? And why was he placed there in the first place?
Okay. The He plays there because of his political beliefs by associating with the new African independent movement as New York Revolutionary Nationalists. That's why he was put in there for political beliefs and organized behind enemy lines. Now, one of the things that the shoe does to people is that it mentally breaks you. It mentally breaks you because you don't have no sunlight, you don't have no human contact. It hurts your skins. It bases psychological and mental torture, right? And then and like Abdul case, they put him on a tier with nothing but with Aryan Brotherhood, with white supremacists, in the hopes of the white supremacists killing him. They put him on a dorm and they put him on the tier in the midst of all those individuals, right? And also the midst of the shoe program, it was very everything that took place in regards to the way the brothers started doing and keeping themselves mobilized was they started educating themselves. They started doing study groups. They started teaching it. They started speaking in Swahili. They started learning African history. They started organizing. Started creating program institutions. They started reaching out to the outside when they able to do so, right? To be able to maintain their sanity. And also in the midst of those years, they had various hunger strikes that they were fighting regarding human right issues. And one of the strikes that took place is almost cost Abdul his life, where he stopped eating around, I think, like 70 some days. He stopped eating for like 70 some days. The result of him going to the hospital and having heart issues from the incident, right? And also in the midst of all of that, being in the shoe program, they subjected him to what they call the gauntlet wars, in which he was going around. It was sending him different prisons where he had to fight for his life. You know what I'm saying? Basically like the movie in regards to what Ving Rhames played in Animal. They were actually treating the brother like that, subjecting them to that type of situation, which is atrocious, which is racist, which is torturous, which was physically harming. The brother kid lost his life, in the midst of those situations. So the brother has endured all them years of psychological and physical abuse, but at one time the brother almost like he went blind because he wasn't receiving any kind of sunlight. The brother eyes were almost like white gray, because he wasn't seeing in the sunlight. And eventually, the work for him and the other brothers, legal work that he pursued, that actually proved that the New African Independence wasn't a gang and the historical movement that dated in 1968. The ultimate resulted in them brothers being released from the shoe and everybody in the shoe program being out. And also in the midst of that, he also created a document that can be known as the agreement to end hostilities. He also, in the midst of that shoe program, he created the Satellite Network. He created Jordan University. He created a Emergency Response Network and so many other institutions and organizations and programs. He really wrote books, literature, wrote pamphlets and signs in which he was censored. He actually fought the legal system so brothers wouldn't be censored in regards to putting their material out there. Brother he educated he don't did so much behind enemy lines, right? In the midst of the time. The brother would never, like George didn't say, he never countermined the broken man. He continued to resist and push forward, educate himself, or educate the mind of others to keep the spirit of resistance alive, right? And all that due to having a strong foundation of political belief started at a young age of 6 before he even came to the penitentiary. Not a year right there.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable the treatment that he endured and survived. And it's unbelievable all of the work that this brother has done under those conditions. Really unbelievable. I know he has some businesses. He has a lot going on. Really, it's amazing. Now, other thing, you said that his continued incarceration is tied more to his political beliefs, really, than to any real threat. I'm hearing some background noise.
Yeah.
But you said that it's really his denial of parole and all these different things. We know is due to his political beliefs. I don't think he doesn't pose any threat the way they think.
Nah.
But can you explain for people how his identification with the New African Independence Movement and the Republic of New Africa has been used against him. So people understand, because a lot of people hear these broadcasts, Brother Bomani, and I think they take it lightly. They think we're exaggerating. Could you please help people understand how his activism and beliefs are being weaponized against him when he comes up for these parole hearings?
Okay. The first thing is that they come with this stipulation speaking, saying that they term they term it as being radical social ideology, or racial social ideology, right? And they associate that they associate the ideology in regard to his initial crime, which he came into prison, right? Was when he had the result and resulted, you know what I'm saying, in the white soldier demise regarding the African sister, right? So they feel like that racial ideology, and also that he was a Black Panther Cub and so forth, so on, that racial ideology, a radical ideology, right? And they feel that he still had that same racial ideology mentality because he identified being an African, which is want to build your independent Black nation, and they understand exactly what it is, right? So due to them identifying with that particular aspect of ideology, that they feel that he's not ready for society. That they feel like he's a threat. They feel like he's gonna be aggressive. Now, and realistically, right, the brother is 60+ years old. Now in California, they passed a law recently in regards to the states. Their brother 50 years or older, they've been locked up consecutively 30 years or more, pose no particular threat in society. They have like a 0% chance of committing crimes, right? So in the midst of that, coming up parole, um, the parole board was basically stating that that the one thing they stated was that they gave him parole, they granted him parole by mistake. Now just think about that, right? How can you grant somebody parole by mistake? That doesn't even make sense. They said they granted him parole by mistake. That doesn't even make sense. Another thing was that they said they didn't ask him the right questions. What do you mean? How do you ask somebody the right question in regards to a parole interview, right? And in the midst of that, they said he didn't do everything they asked him to do. One thing they asked him to do was write a 15-page letter talking about his political involvement, his basically about his whole life, and basically denouncing his political involvement, and basically debriefing and snitching and telling everybody they've been involved in political ideology of his knowing. It's on you as a base of coming to get out of prison. And in the midst of, you think about a lot of brothers that got out of prison for very things, very situations, and them brothers they had to snitch or inform. So why should their brother had to snitch and inform and denounce their political beliefs and things of that nature to be admitted parole? You know what I'm saying? That's very inhumane, they're very psychological abusive, that cruel you to punishment. It doesn't make sense at all, It's very disrespectful, in regards to the brother as a person, as a human. They treat him like an animal. They're very insensitive, right? And then they were saying that all the programs that are geared to a positivity, like if we're looking for men, if we're looking for new African men, women, and children, right? How is that a crime? How is it a crime to find our loved ones? How are they criminal to find our loved ones? How they not community based when it still happening in the community every day, all the time? Like we look at our phone, we get Amber Alert. It comes to our phone that talks about missing children, or we see it on the news, or we see it on different social media platforms. But when we go to do the work ourselves, looking for our men, our new African women and children, it becomes insignificant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. It's criminal because it's associated with the brother who have political beliefs, which doesn't make sense, right? The same thing with Emergency Response Network. We understand that they're doing Hurricane Katrina. The new African community wasn't ready, prepared to build a community or protect themselves, in regard to natural disasters. We wasn't prepared in regard to our food sources, now bug out bags, our emergency apparatus in regard to having our own medical apparatus in our own community, our triad, so forth, so on, or have people to help people on boats, or have people transport people, or say how things of that nature, right? So all those things are geared toward the safe about new African safe for our people, so we can be able to build and flourish a level of positivity. Now, yeah.
For those watching, I'm assuming, Brother Bomani, when they knew that you and Minister King were coming on, that a lot of people that's watching this are already educated around these issues. But for those who watching who are not, what I hope is coming out to you is that you've been taught that these prisons rehabilitate prisoners, that they go in, they get the help they need, and when they come out, they're better. And we know these are complete lies. They are punitive institutions. So it's kind of like it almost doesn't matter what some of our activists and organizers and leaders do when they once they catch them behind enemy lines, once they're involved in hardcore activism, their goal, their intention, from the correctional officers up to the warden, up to the state, is to punish them, family. I want us to be very clear. It's to punish them. It's retribution. It's get back for those elements of the white community. That's what this is about. For those who are naive, who don't understand, well, if he reached this age, why don't they let him go? Right? It's the same reason why so many of our elders who are released, Brother Bamani, they're in their 60s and 70s. Right? Many of them have chronic diseases by the time they come out. And this is done deliberately. I think we know that. And if we don't, we should. Now, despite these conditions, we have. Did you want Mr. King to jump in now, Brother Bamani? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. King, please unmute yourself, good brother, okay?
Free the land.
Free the land, good brother. Thank you for joining us. Good brother, the question I have for you is, despite all of these atrocious conditions that Brother Abdul has been put through, he's known as an educator, poet, author, mentor, ojegna, and an organizer inside of the prison. And in fact, the last time I was in touch with him, we were starting the Assad Alert Network. He's organizing outside the prison. Let's be clear, not just in the prison. Can you describe some of the programs, the mentorship, the consciousness raising work that Baba Abdul has done with some of the younger brothers who are incarcerated?
Yeah, so like I just want to make a statement that, in the depths of Pelican Bay and other correctional facilities across the United States, people got to remember that there's a forgotten population of elders incarcerated, individuals who await redemption because they believe, and we believe, as their activists, as their support system, that no one is beyond redemption, because this thing is both spiritual and political. So I mean, a lot of people forget that they was named the worst of the worst. They was stigmatized and criminalized as violent predators, our black identity extremists. Whether we feel that they are a unique class of individuals who possess the wisdom, experience, and desire to promote peace and reconciliation. So that's why I'm advocating on the behalf of these elders. These are my brothers, these are my mentors. So I remember one time when Abdul had wrote this article, Chess versus Checkers, and he was talking to all of the proletarian lumpen class, and in particular, he was talking to the youth. And I remember when he was telling us, one
Don't hear you, my brother. Okay, I don't know if our brother has frozen, but Mr. King, if you can hear me, make sure you didn't accidentally mute your mic. And I believed what Brother Minister King was talking about was the the mentorship that Brother Abdul was providing to the younger brothers that were incarcerated, and he was saying why he's defending his honor because he's done such good for people like himself and other younger individuals that are behind the walls, so to speak. Mr. King, if you can hear me, okay, I think okay, unmute. Can you hear me? Right. Um, Brother Abdul's anything you want to chime in while we wait for him to come back in? Anything you wanted to add?
Well, what I want to add was in regards to like what Minister King was talking about is in regards to an article he wrote about Chetford Checker, which is a base of in regards to uh, our particular society. It's for static. A particular plight in the society, right? Our particular predicament of how we might utilize chess in regard to strategy, uh, uh, the base position, and opportunity to be able
Can
to
you hear me?
yeah, go ahead, bro. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, what we got to understand is a growing body of case shows that California Parole Board and Gavin Newsom are engaging in pattern of racial discrimination, parole denials against New African, particularly. The core issue is one is being criminalized because of their worldview, and in order to come out of solitary confinement, they was already saying snitch, parole, or die. So here it is, after coming from one structure to the next, from solitary confinement to general population, we begin to start engaging with culture exchange, right? And once we start working with each other, working with these other groups, and start getting them to see the bigger picture of being a progressive person, being a new man, a new way of thinking, and stepping away from the criminal mentality, elders like Abdul and others alike, Louis Powell, Hashima, they was sitting down in these study groups and they was coming up with these strategic strategies like chess versus checkers of saying, okay, now if you think like a criminal, you know the circumstances. But if you think progressively and start building your community, and then you could be seen as not the worst of the worst. I want to make sure that you all could hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, so reason why I say that because they're saying the Asada Alert Network is not a feasible program. They're saying the agreement to end hostilities is not a feasible program. But when you think about the board for years has not allowed people inside of solitary confinement to go home. So this is why they implemented parole, snitch or die, right? But if you as a young new African descendant in this country, if you understand being poor, you understand that if you get arrested, your bail will set you so high and you'll be subjected to being an economic hostage. So right now, it's beyond punishment because when we talk about the agreement to end hostility, it's actually a curriculum that we put inside of the churches, inside of the mosques. On the 25th of this month, we're actually going to be promoting the agreement to end hostilities in every community from cell block to city block. What we got to understand is the success rate of these elders who have come home, who was in the dungeons for 30 and 40 years, sitting in skeleton base, subjected to this torture. So what they do is use these programs to censor you, subjected to decades of sensory deprivation, decades of isolation just based on your worldview. But when you come out here in society, you see progressive art on the wall. Here in Oakland, you see George on the wall. You can see the 10-point platform. Here in California, Governor Gavin Newsom embraced the 10-point platform. The mayor of Oakland embraced the 10-point platform. Why? Because that's not gang ideology. That's community movement building to feed your people. It's community movement building to educate your people. So why should you be criminalized for having a worldview when the Universal Declarations of Human Rights law, California and U.S. Constitution stipulates that no one should be criminalized or discriminated because of their worldview, their culture, their religion, their race, their sex. But yet and still, these underground policies and procedures are being upheld because they want to keep hold of their code of silence. They want to keep hold of chattel slavery. Here in California, the governor fell or refused. He vetoed Prop 6 when we was trying to eradicate involuntary servitude. So think about all these elders that's been incarcerated for decades, but they don't have a retirement plan. They don't got a full K1, but yet and still they still working slave labor in the prison industrial slave complex. They're using them as hostage, economical hostage. Right now, we're looking at brothers like Abdul, brothers like uh Lewis Powell, and others alike. They're sitting in these dungeons because they're using them as chattel slavery. And that's the problem. Like, we really need to look at this and replace the state board with the strategic community release board. That way we can allow our people to be seen in the character that they are human, because this is a human rights violation. When we talking about torture, the CDC small r need to be indicted on RICO acts. They need to be indicted on conspiracy, because if they fail or refuse to parole somebody because they won't snitch, that's an underground rule. That's against the law. There's no rule in CDC that you have to snitch on somebody to be paroled. So that's the bigger thing, right? But then just think about how many times I went to the colleges and I had somebody like Abdul call in on his tablet and he talked to the youth at the college. How many times I had uh somebody like Lewis Powell take his book and we talk to the community about solutions, conflict resolution. This is the antennas of the agreement to end hostilities. This is why we saying that when we hear rhetoric about this program isn't feasible or the SADA alert network, how could it not be feasible when we talking about going to protect women, youth, and elders? California
Mhm.
has an ebony alert that came straight out of the SADA alert network. They're talking about ending violence in schools and violence disruptors. We are the influencers of the influencers. This is why the inside and out, our people must be heard on a level of knowing that, through the arts, I always bolster, whether it's talking about exception, whether it's talking about freedom through education, whether it's talking about bringing family unification. These are the issues that I'm always bringing up through the arts, because I believe that art is a universal language, because a lot of times we are being infringed when we talk about these certain things and criminalized, right? So when we talk about the law, the state, the parole suitability, this only determined by whether a person possess a reasonable or unreasonable risk to public safety. Abdul is a poster child who should be looked at when we see him go to the board and they talk about elderly parole. All the things that he have done inside and out progressively, starting going in as a youth and now as an elder, he meets the criteria to be free, to be housed in a place where he could get wraparound services. We think about the insight and accountability, the relapse prevention plan, the support system, length of positive behavior, psychological evaluation, and other objective factors. These are the focal points that the board focused on when they talking about finding you suitable for board. It's beyond punishment. So um The programs that he's promoting are inside of the school. So would you say that the school are participating in hostile curriculum? Would you say that the teachers and the law students and the clergymen and women who's advocating for the release for Abdul Shakur, for Lewis Powell, the particular class? I say a particular class because our elders are walking encyclopedias. When Trump is talking about shutting down the schools, when they talking about removing the black statue and shutting down the Martin Luther King museum, where you could go to these elders, these walking encyclopedias, and rebuild. We don't talk about the destruction of black civilization as it referred today in a modern time. And that's what we subjected to. Anyone that disagree with this imperialism, anyone that disagree with this establishment, this corporation, you're seen as the worst of the worst. So that's why we saying, like, let's talk about the progressive things that they're doing from their cell. And they don't see small r. And we say small r because a wise man, George, once said, the journey to freedom begins from within. Which, because we are our own liberators, we got to liberate ourselves from them vices, the criminal way of thinking. We got to liberate ourselves from the hate among each other, right? The combating each other. Instead, we got to combat liberalism and look at ourselves in the mirror and realize that, hold on, let's hold ourselves accountable and say, uh no more would you be able to come inside of our community and harm our youth, our elders, and our women. And even if you get held captive inside of the dungeon, we're not going to embrace you. We're going to try to change your mentality. We're not going to embrace you as a criminal. Those are the concepts of Abdul. Those are the concepts of the elders, right? So I'm a product of that. And I speak highly of that because now I'm the director of the same organization, California Prison Focus, rattled the cage, advocated to get us out of solitary confinement. I'm a product of going inside of the college and promoting the concrete scholars. The underground scholars, they established their curriculum based on what these elders put out. They have what we call the quest for democracy. Once a year, all formerly incarcerated people come together and they giving back and they writing policy and they focusing on policy. We don't talk about how every Thursday we come back, the formerly incarcerated is giving back. We're giving out food. We taking care of the community. We educating the community. These are the people that Abdul will come out and assimilate with and sit down and centralize with the people and educate and rebuild the community. So really, in hindsight, when you think about it, CDC small r is saying that these principal thinkers is their competition because a lot of times you get these governors and these senators, they create their own nonprofits and they create policy and procedure, and then they say, get your hand on my pocket by keeping you in solitary confinement. It's death by incarceration because they see their programs as competition because they want to say, well, you can't have this book, Blood in My Eye, but here, you can have this book right here, a step down program, a journal. We want you to write here and debrief. But it's beyond punishment, And so what's going on right now, we're running a strategic campaign for those like Abdul who have for years, for decades, he haven't had a rule violation report, no evidence of existing gang activity. For decades, he have been rehabilitating himself and others alike. Um, he have a lot of community support. It's just those confidential chronos by IGI. IGI, for those that don't know, is the Institutional Gang Investigation, and all those IGI chronos that's found in the state. Oscar versus Governor, People versus Gonzalez, People versus Dakari. The Board of Parole continue to use them, but it's been found unreliable. So again, they're falsifying documents. They're using state and government documentations. This is a RICO Act violation. So who's the real criminal? We know that there's gangsters in the White House, but it started on the administrative level. So instead of us just saying, okay, uh, we want to point our hands, point our fingers, and get caught with our hand in the cookie jar, we just want freedom, justice, and equality for our people. Earlier, you talked about H. Rap Brown, how he had cancer on his face. It made me think about my elder Paul Red, who came home fighting with cancer, and he still pulled strive to expose the injustice that happened in the case of Lewis Powell. He still exposed the injustice that happened with Abdul Shakur, and others alike. So you got these elders coming home sick after decades of incarceration, and they still fighting. I think about my brother Sitawa Natamu Jamaha, who was one of the lead petitioners. He had to come home through a compassionate release, but he went in prison when he was 20 years old. So when I say these things, I'm talking about a class. So what we need more lawyers. We need more law students. We need more clergymen and women. We need people to get involved on a level where they see humanity, because it's about shared humanity. Earlier, uh, Brother Bomani spoke on Jaleel Muta King. We're centralized and we're organized around the idea of going to Atlanta on July 4th so we could talk about America, the corporation that's been found guilty of 5 counts of genocide. Mass incarceration, solitary confinement is one of those issues. And people need to get up and read and learn more about the Mandela rules. These are all the issues that happened during, before, and after solitary confinement. But one thing I could say about Abdul and his class, he could still smile now. He's still working. He's part of the unbroken class. He's still working, he putting out his books, and we're taking those books and we're studying. We're studying in the George Jackson University. We're studying as artivists, as activists, as artists. We're studying how do we centralize and align people from cell block to city block and get people now to understand that concept that came out of Pelican Bay, the agreement to end hostilities from cell block to city block, from state to state. We're studying that curriculum. And this is how we believe that we're going to get true freedom as a whole. One of the biggest strategies that we're going to be doing as artists, as activists, we're going to not only expose this cultural genocide, this menocide, but we're going to establish a citizen complaint. And part of that citizen complaint, we, the people out here in society, is going to say enough is enough, because what you're doing, a part of this menocide, you're prohibiting these youth, these young boys and girls, from having fathers and uncles. You're prohibiting them from having conflict resolution. You're prohibiting them from being able to be mentored and reared as young black new African men and women and other oppressed people who've been suffering. So when we talking about uh stop mass incarceration, when we talking about uh ending long term solitary confinement, this been going on for years. And I tell that story through the arts. I tell it through my newspaper. Uh, I tell it through the podcast. I bolster that story to the people so they can understand that this is not a game. This is not just a campaign. This is us going and try to kick the gates down, boot open the gate, and liberate our elders, those who gonna be there for us, who been there for us from frontline from day one. I yield.
My brother, you said a good mouthful there. And you know, I always we got people that's bubbling in the chat. And I think we have a very politically educated group on the chat. Nevertheless, I always assume there's somebody who doesn't know some of what we're talking about. So, Minister King or my good brother Bamani, for those who don't know, could you define for them what a political prisoner is and how that's different from, say, a regular prisoner?
For some
Uh,
reason, I can't hear nothing.
okay. You gonna go ahead? You want me to go, man? It don't matter. Okay. Well, a political prisoner is an individual that is
Yeah, I most
incarcerated.
definitely got to give me an office so I could be in my office.
Okay. A political prisoner is an individual that is incarcerated for his or her political beliefs and political activity, and also a political prisoner individual that's already incarcerated that received double incarcerated but been in controlled manner using the SHU programs for his or her political beliefs as well, and political ideology and political involvement. That's what a political prisoner is, right? Somebody who's is part of a political organization. They're geared toward the liberation, the independence and freedom of the people, and the building of a nation and the building of a culture and the transfer the mind state from the criminal to a revolutionary mind state and do transfer culture to actually be something sustainable that is considered to be anti-American, anti-system that revolves around us having our own uh, government environment that consists of us being in control, operating, own everything in it, right? That's basically what a political prisoner is. A prisoner of war is an individual that engaged into political warfare or gun battle, so to speak, with the PA, the police officer, as a member of a political organization. You know, just like for instance, when Conrad George came into the prison system, he didn't come into the prison system as a political prisoner. He became a political prisoner in the prison system due to political action, political activity. He became a political prisoner then. You know, that base example. And that's what happened to a lot of the brothers in California that were considered to be at one time shoe line political prisoners because they was in the shoe, which is the security housing unit. Shoe for short, right, for their political beliefs. So they became political prisoner due to their political beliefs. And a lot of them see indefinite shoe time, being in the shoe 30, 40, 50 years for their political beliefs. But they refuse to be broken. They still organized, educated themselves, educate others, wrote signs, wrote books, wrote publications. They actually spearheaded one of the largest hunger strikes ever in prison history that took place during 3 different years in regards to that resulted in prison, not all in California, prison all over the United States involved in it for human rights. So it's real, you know, it's a real deal situation. So they're based on
Mm-hmm.
political prison here, right? Also, you have political exile. Political exile individual that escape America and receive political asylum for their political beliefs, right? There are various examples of that throughout history, you know. So that basically is a nutshell, not yeah.
Thank you for that, good brother Bamani. I believe Minister King didn't have a good signal situation, so he may have left the broadcast. Um, we're going to continue. I'm assuming if the good brother can come back on, he will. You know, this the thing with this technology, man. It's glitchy sometimes. You all actually answered a lot, just about everything I was going to answer. Okay, let me ask you this: we're in a precarious position, brother Bamani.
Okay.
People are getting arrested many times unethically, and they're being held against their will unethically. They're not given actual resources to rehabilitate, but they're being punished, and they're the victims of people who are vindictive. The prison system and the governmental status have every interest and never letting our brothers and sisters get out of prison for obvious reasons, because they feel they're gonna, educate the young, politicize people, take their skills and organize. So that puts us in a very difficult organizing scenario, because we know the thing we're asking for, even though we know these prisons violate all these constitutional, so-called constitutional rights. Cruel and unusual punishment, for example, would be right? And all these things, they're not going to relent. So how do we, as you see it, Brother Bamani, because I know you deal with these things closely, what's the organizing blueprint? How do we, particularly those of us who are not incarcerated, what role do we play in this issue when we're talking about freeing Brother Abdul Olugbala Shakur and political prisoners in general? What should we be doing on the outside?
Well, The main thing that we should be doing is propagating the information, letting people know that political prison exists in America, right? Because America's always been denied that political prison exists. Let people know that political prison exists, a new political prison exists, and that people are being tortured by their political beliefs and they're being harassed, and they're also given the death sentence for political beliefs. Let people know that. Put the information out there. Start study groups that need to be. Write political prisoners. Write Abdul. Write Abdul and ask him what he need. Write him and talk. Ask what he need in regards to your platform. Another thing you can be doing is like calling Governor Newsom and basically letting your voice be heard and demanding that they actually uh, surrender their thoughts and surrender what they say they're going to do and be a man, be a person of their word, and actually release him due to the fact that they find him eligible for parole. Now, also in the midst of that, a parole decision, they actually refused and rejected all of his support letters. Right, they rejected all of that, rejected all the support letters from all the people that supported him. They also refused to hear the midst for new evidence and information in regard to the IGI, which is the Institute Gang Investigating Unit, that blatantly said that he's not involved in any kind of criminal activity. And also, one of the commissioners stated that he stated that Abdul is eligible for parole, and if everything, if they follow the law, he should be out. They were one of the commissioners here, right? And when you think about things like that, the people have to put the pressure on the system in order to release our people, right? Release them. This is how I put the president, to the body, release them. So in the midst of this, right now, it basically like what they doing right now, they're doing a paper war in regards to the legal system. We got to do the same exact thing. We got to attack them on the same level in regard to information, the same way they doing us, right? The same way doing the elder in regard to the situation. So we got to make them fulfill and follow the same human right they say we all have as men, the same human right they say we have all as women, the same human right they say that we have internationally and universally as humans, right? In regard to mass incarceration, the aspect of being there to choose your particular nationality. We have a right to our nationality, right? So by identifying as a new African, which is nationality, we have a right to that. That's not criminal. It's not criminal, right? Even though we understand that the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment were forced upon us in regard to the forcing into American citizenship, they didn't give us a choice. We understand they didn't give us a choice to be a citizen. They didn't give us a choice. They didn't ask us did we want to build our own nation. They didn't ask us did we want to repatriate back to Africa. They didn't ask did you want to be a part of their system. They just told you you're a citizen of America right now and be gone with it. That was the 14th Amendment. After they abolished slavery, the 13th Amendment, and which they really still didn't do that because they still play 13 amendments that you commit a crime, you'll go back to slavery. So right now, Abdul is a slave. He's a slave, and due to people being slaves, they feel like slaves don't have rights. Slaves are inhumane. They are animals. They're chattel. They're property. That's the way they treat him. And we see that same condition and treatment going on in our communities out here. They treat us like that. They don't want us to be educated. We're living in a system right now where the age of ignorance at an all-time high. The age of stupidity is at an all-time high. Especially in regard to the political system, especially in regard to the education system. So it's our duties as people who are conscious and awake to educate ourselves, to teach our own children, to teach our own people, so making people be aware of what a mass incarceration does. Mass incarceration is pretty much the biggest business on the planet Earth. There's no business on the planet Earth to make more money. There's a multi-billionaire corporation. Then you look at it, a lot of these billionaire companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, another platform, they invest into prisons. They invest in a lot of them even create their own private prison because it's a business and it's legal. So you can make money off that, right? The aspect of a free and brother like Abdul will actually stop their money because Abdul has the power to liberate the mind of every individual. If he comes to the street, he can preach that philosophy and teach brothers and sisters not to go to prison, which will have a direct result in regards to the mass incarceration rate. The static quote in regards to the population percentage in regard to people going the new African population going to prison. So he's a threat in regard to that aspect because he had the power to influence and inspire other individuals not to commit crimes, influence and inspire individuals to build their community, inspire, educate, inspire, and influence individuals to do something that's righteous, to find their talents. Like Dr. John Clark say, where we do bad, do it for your people. So that's what the brother doing. So he's a base of threat. Now the brother was in there. He was in there, being a gang member, committing crimes or whatever. They would have been letting the brother out. They'd have been letting the brother out. The brother was he was not doing drugs. They'd been letting the brother out. But due to the brother refused to have that criminal mentality, he's a problem. He's a threat because he had the ability to organize people. He had the ability to educate people. He had the ability to influence people. He had the ability to inspire people. He had the ability to protect people. Had the ability to get people to protect themselves, learn things, develop themselves, right? And that's a threat because it takes away from the economic system of colonialism, economic system of neocolonial, economic system of imperialism, economic system of mass incarceration, or the prison industrial slave complex.
Mm,
So it just so much to say that, man. I yield. I'm gonna let minister go in. I yield.
mm. Hey, so
Thank you for
I
that.
want to apologize for some reason my frequency, my channel went out. I lost uh so I'm thinking about I'm listening to Bomani, and it just made me think about all the teachers that don't get paid, and it made me think about all the principal thinkers, all the hard work that they do, but at the same time, here is someone is being a principal thinker, a teacher, and he being criminalized for teaching. He being criminalized for having a worldview. And then at the same time, like I was saying earlier, the competitor, the state itself, these government and state agents, what they do, they confiscate their literature, they confiscate their manuscripts, and then they give them 1030s. So I remember sitting in solitary confinement, and we used to use the San Francisco Bayview to educate ourselves. We used to use the California Prison Focus. We used these certain newspapers to write articles, and inside the newspaper, I was talking about the chess versus checkers. And we was using these newspapers not to only educate ourselves, but it was the old each one teach one philosophy. And as you start looking and saying, well, if the state is talking about safety and security, if we talking about public safety, you got these articles that could be seen as programs. The Asada Alert Network, you go from writing an article to it become actual organization. And what happened is when we was already criminalized for being New Africans, criminalized for having a worldview, the state after the hunger strike decided, hey, well, this particular group is not a gang, they're an organization. So again, when we talk about torture, one has to look back and say, well, if we're not a gang, well, why did you keep people in solitary confinement for so long? So now it become evidence based that everything was based on an implicit bias towards New Africans, towards oppressed people. And then we start thinking about the U.S. Constitution again. We think about the anti-torture statute, 18 U.S.C. Subsection 2340, the UN Convention Against Torture. So if solitary confinement is a crime, why is the people not outraged? That's the biggest question. Why is there not more people rushing the gates? Why is policy and procedure being upheld to deny them their freedom when we look at the situation where, okay, if Abdul is the lead facilitator for gang prevention, CDC is saying, well, he's capable of being a mentor. He's capable of being a mentor to the younger generation behind the walls inside of CDCR, but he's not capable of being a mentor to youth who haven't been subjected to crime or a criminal mentality. So he can prohibit them from even thinking, no, they're again using him as chattel slavery. They're keeping them in there because you have a particular class of progressive thinkers, and then you have some who haven't thus far made it to that school of thought. So it's like CDC has their own set of rules, their own game, this technology, where they say, okay, well, you don't fit the criteria to be released. But yet the board commissioner already said he fit the criteria. So what is it? They go back and forth, but at the end of the game, it's about economics. It's about using them as economical hostage. And when we talk about this same disparities parallel to society, this cultural deprivation, we think about this economical violence because of this uh particular class is not being denied on the inside, but their children is being denied. Their community is being denied. Because now what's happening is the community is underfunded, underrepresented. These programs, the SADA Alert Network has already been criminalized by the state. So now they can't get a grant. So we got to pull in our resources. So all this is strategic. And when I talk about economical violence, for those that don't understand, is basically prohibiting one from the resources. And they put a particular class in one setting in the short quarter, and then they let the greater force, those who snitch, parole, or die, to go out and lie and create confidential information or collaborate with the state and government agents for no reason at all, besides upholding the game. So when I look at these things, I'm like, we have one class of people that want to do better in their community. And then you got another class of people who say, well, through policy and procedure, we want to prohibit people from committing crimes, but the next man's trash is the next man's treasure. So that's what's going on right now. At the same time, CDCR is making money off the backs of incarcerated people, in particular elders, in particular new Africans, because they don't want that school of thought, especially in these times. Especially in these times, they don't want that school of thought out in society because they don't want people to think, well, you know what? I'm not going to commit a crime. I'm going to go out here and rebuild my community. I'm going to
Brother Minister
rebuild the
King,
infrastructure. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're kind of coming to a close, and we got I think both of you brothers are giants in the community, and you've both given a really good political education sort of lesson as relates to being a political prisoner, what Brother Abdul Olugbala Shakur is going through, why we should be fighting for him. And I really want to make sure, Brother Mamani spoke on it, I think, while you lost signal. I'd like you to add to the discussion now as we get ready to end this particular broadcast. What can our people on the outside do? Now, Mamani said that we could be doing a number of things. One of the things I was thinking is, can we do something with sending products, commissary, something to help brothers while they're in there to have the things they need? Is that, I know that they check everything. Is that something that would help, or no? Would that cause more problems, or how do you see that?
Well, I mean, one of the things is we want people to start writing so they could get educated directly by the elders that's sitting in there in them tombstones. Write to Abdul Shakur personally. We won't again. I overheard my brother Bomani talk about reaching out to the governor, Gavin Newsom. We got to demand an end of discriminatory parole practice. We got to demand a release of data showing racial disparities, because right now in California we're focusing on the Racial Injustice Act. We got to demand a state and federal investigation of this ongoing violation. Contact the legislators in both the California Senate and the U.S. Congress. Demand the recession hearings and IGI practices be brought under legal scrutiny. We got a demand for the class of new African prisoners to be understood that CDC has rules in their Title 15, has rules in their DOM that no one should be discriminated objectively or subjected to discrimination because of their worldview, because of their political activity, because of their progressive work, because of their art, because of their manuscripts, because of their school of thought, because of their religion. This is ongoing because it parallels into society. This is what Donald Trump is doing to the people out here in society. So they been going racism, like George said, fascism is already here and it's been here. So this is a public safety issue. This is a elder abuse issue. This is a torture issue because you don't think when you think about majority of the white citizens that are incarcerated, they wouldn't dare have that many elders incarcerated that's white. I'm just being straight to it. So this is why when we created the agreement to end hostilities, what people got to understand is that's a multicultural document. That's a
Mm-hmm.
multi-generational document. So even the whites are in solidarity with liberate our elders. Even the Hispanics are in solidarity, and I'm talking about these are the lumping in the proletarian class. These are the people who changed their mentality, right? But primarily, you have elders like Abdul who actually wrote the agreement to end hostilities. This is the work that San Francisco Bayview highlights of saying, okay, educate these youth through the newspaper. California Prison Focus highlight George Jackson University aim autonomous infrastructure. So again, what people could do is get involved with the alignment from cell block to city block, get involved and see how they work and their mission statement align with our campaign to liberate our elders, to liberate Abdul Shakur.
Are there any organizations that either of you would suggest that our people on the outside get in touch with where they can learn more about political prisoners and be part of a movement? Any organizations you'd recommend?
Yes, I recommend that you get involved with the George Jackson University. I recommend that you get involved with the Asada Alert Network, the Autonomous Infrastructure Movement. I recommend that you Google Cell Block, the City Block, formerly incarcerated, giving back, California Prison Focus, Cage Universal. They're all in alignment with this campaign. They're all that we all have the same mission statement. The People Senate. Um, Prison Lives Matter, we're all in alignment with the same mission statement to abolish prison slavery, to remove the the cruel and unusual punishment that's being upheld not only through the state and government agents but by the parole board, the commissioners who actually was IGI. And that right there is the infringement. You think about elders like Mamiya, how he had a lawyer and a DA that's now a judge. This is a covert issue that's going on. It's a code of silence. This is the green wall, the blue wall working in collusion among this corporation. So us, the people in society, the power lays up in us to centralize and come together and look at these issues from coast to coast, whether you in Atlanta, whether you in Harlem, whether you in Indianapolis, whether you in Chicago, realize that we got to unite and have unity with a purpose and sit down and find the strategies, the strategic strategies, and figure out what's best for our people right now. What's best for our people right now is to come together around these issues to end this long term incarceration and end death by incarceration.
Thank you for that, Minister King. Brother Bomani, are there any last words, any things that you didn't get a chance to say that are important for you to say?
Okay. Well, what I wanted to say is that for people who are not aware of these situations, right, and want to get their hands on the campaign to free Abdul Olugbala Secure brochure and pamphlet the just under rest pamphlets, they can email either me or Minister King and get the information. My email is umanisecure80@gmail.com. And I'm gonna say just free Abdul Olugbala Secure and get involved. Free the land. I
Free
yield.
the land. And be prepared for Black August coming up. We're gonna be talking about these issues from August 1st all the way to 31st, where we break the fast in Stockton, California. We're gonna still continue to talk about liberate our elders, free the land.
Yes, sir. Free the land. Family, those of you watching, I realize that you're getting a lot of information. And so because there's so much to talk about around this issue, Brother Abdul Olugbala Shakur is one of many political prisoners that are languishing in the dungeons that the white man has created that he calls prisons. And we need to free them all. I like that motto when they say free them all. And I like that. Right now, we're focusing on a campaign for our good brother. There's so many who need our help. And I realized that one broadcast is never going to be able to accomplish the immense task of educating our people and mobilizing and organizing. So I talked to Brother Bomani. We're going to talk about it more in depth later. But I would love to have Harlem Liberation School have a regular appearance of Brother Bomani, maybe Minister King with him, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, where we can have a consistent spot, one of many, because we're not the only ones doing this work, but where, you can come to Harlem Liberation School and you can hear what Bomani and Minister King have to say consistently. We could have it where maybe we could have some things, like he said, the brochure, Brother Bomani, we could have that digitized. They could go to a link and download it while we talking. And we could do a whole bunch of interesting things. So hopefully, family, we'll be able to provide that for you this year. And with that said, I want to thank our good brothers, Minister King, Brother Bomani. We want to thank all of the ancestors who are participants in the Black Liberation Movement, engaged in Black resistance in any way they did it. And with that said, today is the 97th birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And I know that those of us who are more radical may look upon him with that he was soft, but I need to tell you something, family. The enemy didn't think he was soft. The enemy didn't think he was soft. The enemy killed him. The enemy locked him up 30-something times. All right? The enemy kept wiretaps on him everywhere he went because he was involved in direct action. He went right to the sources, the sites of oppression. That takes a lot of courage if you think about it. He went right to the sheriffs, the police precincts, got the kids involved, right? So we want to give honor and thanks to him as well for the role he played, even though some of us disagree with some of his particular politics. Brother Bomani, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to say something. Martin Luther King was a political prisoner as well, right? He was a political prisoner, and if people start looking at the history, right, the day before he got assassinated, he was in Memphis, Tennessee. He would meet with a community organization called the Invaders. The Invader was an organization that was geared toward the same principles of the Revolutionary Action Movement, same principles of the Black Panther Party, the same community-based and protection programs that a lot of the revolutionary Black national organizations were dealing with. He had met with them a day before in regard to organizing certain efforts within Memphis, Tennessee before he was assassinated. And that's why I want to say, the brother started going to the aspect and saying that there was nothing wrong with armed struggle. There's nothing wrong with political struggle, armed struggle, armed resistance. There was nothing wrong with it. He started talking about that before his demise, because he felt like he had sent the people into a system that wasn't ours. He came to a realization in the final hour. You know what I'm saying? I just want to say that.
Thank you for that, Brother Bomani. That's important. And to add to that, we had our good brother, formerly known as Max Stanford, changed his name to Muhammad Ahmad, the founder of the Revolutionary Action Movement. We talked to him for almost 2 hours here on the channel, and he confirmed, because I had read this in one of his books, he confirmed that he was there when Brother Malcolm was on a phone call with Dr. King, and they were talking about Brother Malcolm organizing the militant north, so to speak, and Dr. King organizing that kind of nonviolent civil rights direct action south, and them working together, and how the lawyer would come to some of the meetings because Dr. King couldn't afford to be seen with Brother Malcolm. So there's a lot, family, that we don't know about Dr. King that, as Brother Bomani is alluding to, is coming out. The brother was definitely kind of moving a little bit toward the left, and that's a beautiful thing. And I would encourage people on this day and on Monday, do a little study on Dr. King. You might find some things that you didn't know. It might change, may give you some nuance. And I also want to say, lastly, many of the great heroes and heroes we respect, the baby boomer generation, to me, one of the baddest, made some stone cold soldiers. People like my Baba Daruba bin Wahad, and Sada Shakur, and Chokwe Lumumba, and some of the bad ones. Some of those people started out as student activists involved with the civil rights movement. Stokely Carmichael became Kwame Ture. They started out, many of them, as nonviolent direct action activists. And through that struggle, their disillusionment with the promises of the civil rights movement not being met, they're being imprisoned and beaten up, they got radicalized. So don't sleep. Don't judge everybody just because their politics don't align with yours. Sometimes people go through a process, and if they're fighting on our behalf, I love that. Whether I agree with how they do it all the time is different. But many of those people got radicalized through that process and became some great warriors. So with that said, I just want to say shout out to Dr. King, shout out to Brother Abdul, Olugbala, Shakur, all of the many brothers and sisters that are political prisoners, even including those who are not black, who are political prisoners, who fought for freedom, justice, and equality as well. And with that said, family, peace and black power, free the land, good brothers. Thank you for coming on.
America's prison. America's
right,
prison.
Peace. And we're going to get y'all back, man. I want to try to do something more regular to really, really reach out to the people, man. Peace, family.
Peace. Can't stop, won't stop.
That's right.